the Jerusalem Press Club, JPC, another one in the series, Israel is Alive and Kicking, with Jonathan Medved, founder and CEO of OurCrowd, a Jerusalem-based equity crowdfunding platform, who will speak on the recent investment in the race to find in Israel a vaccine for the coronavirus. I'd like to thank Leah Stern, Director of Communications at OurCrowd, and Leora Carpino of OurCrowd, as well as my colleagues at the Jerusalem Press Club for facilitating this webinar. Jonathan Medved has been active in technology startups for the last 40 years or more. First in California for Q&A. You are unmuted, so please type your questions on chat and he will answer them.
Okay, thank you.
John, why don't you tell us first a few words about OurCrowd briefly, and then we'll move to the investment in the vaccine for the coronavirus.
Okay, thank you, Uri, and good morning to everyone. Thanks for being here. Basically, OurCrowd today is Israel's most active venture capital investor, according to PitchBook. We have about $1.4 billion under management. We've invested in over 200 individual portfolio companies, and we actually are fund investors with about 20 funds under our umbrella. We are in particular quite active right now in terms of backing the companies that we have who are fighting the virus either directly or indirectly, and we're busy hunting new companies that we can back, such as Megvax, which we announced an investment of $12 million last week, and I don't think we've ever had quite a response either from the press or from individual investors in an investment at all for the last 7 years that we've been running this. What I'd like to share with you is a little bit of background on what's going on here in Israel, on the crisis, and how our companies meaning Israeli companies, are really on the front lines. So let me see if I can get this to go down. So this is data, you've seen this, a little bit old, of a couple of days, but Israel is doing pretty well. When you look at the ranking, as of about a week ago, we're not the best in the world, but in terms of testing, we're doing quite well in terms of our numbers of tests per million. Mortality, we're doing well. Just yesterday, our Prime Minister was on a call with 7 other leaders of what they call the Organization of Smart Countries, who seem to be ahead of this, people like Australia, New Zealand, Austria, and others. And I think Israel is doing relatively in this terrible crisis well. We've managed to flatten the curve, and you can see that in a variety of ways. Unfortunately, this virus has had a terrible impact on Jewish communities worldwide. One of the strangest facts at all is that there have been more British Jews who have died than all of the Jews in Israel, which is a wild thing because they have maybe 1/30, about 3% of our Jewish population. But because Jews are so socially active, we have actually been hit by this plague on a biblical scale. This is not the first pandemic, by the way, and it won't be the last. And so when we look at this from an investment standpoint, we are focused on not just how to beat this one, but how to get ready for the next one and beyond. And we think that
John, let me just add here for our the journalists who are watching that later we'll be happy to hand over all the slides. So if you miss something, don't worry about it.
Thank you, Uri. There is a real opportunity to invest here, and it's a very different kind of investment opportunity relative to what we've seen in the past. And that is that often we talk about the fact that one of the great times to invest in startup companies is when there's a down market. When prices are lower, that always turns out to be a good time. But now we not only have a pricing opportunity, but we have a systemic change opportunity. The world before COVID is different than the world after COVID. And there are many trends, and they're not just medical trends, about telemedicine or fighting viruses or protective equipment or DNA testing, but distance learning, work from home, the whole collaboration, even exercise from home. These are things that were present in our cultures before the pandemic, but now have entered warp speed going forward. And this represents a historic investment opportunity, believe it or not. So we are very, very active, and we'll show you here a couple of the companies and then get right to the vaccine, which I know that you're all most interested in. Israel, by the way, is very good at tackling these global challenges. You know, according to the World Economic Forum, we're one of the leaders in the world in terms of innovation. You know all that. And right now in Israel, there are a lot of activities in testing technologies, whether it's saliva or breath, therapeutics, all kinds of testing that's going on at the moment for new therapies. Ventilators, by the way, we've developed from scratch our own ventilator business. Guys at Elbit, we're turning military factories into producers of vents. And of course, vaccine development, which is really top of mind for most people. So when you look at how we're going to be essentially describing this investment, it's both in the prevention and containment, ranging from vaccines and sensors to treatment and healing, therapeutics, diagnostics, and then continuity and mitigation in terms of the business and large-scale societal trends that are out there. We believe that investors should look at these trends as a very, very important area to really focus their attention. So our investment in Megvax, and I apologize for the outside noise. This is the result of working at home. You're dependent on whether your neighbor's gardener is out there using his blower at any given moment. The investment in Megvax is our newest investment last week, a $12 million investment. And we're excited about this because Megvax represents a very, very differentiated vaccine approach. This story, the backstory is pretty amazing. The Megvax comes out of a research institute in the Galilee called Migal. And these guys, for the last 4 years, have been working on chicken flu. Okay, not chicken soup, chicken flu. And
we hosted them a month ago.
Okay, so, wonderful. So David Zigdon and his team, okay, Professor Itamar Shalit, a bunch of wonderful guys who basically started tackling coronavirus before it was fashionable, because the chicken flu that they were attacking was a coronavirus bug. And they spent 4 years working on it. And it's not easy, by the way, to build a vaccine. And they built a successful chicken flu vaccine. And then all of a sudden, as they're getting ready to take it to market, they heard about COVID, and they took their efforts and have now adjusted it to the human requirement. So they have a lead, okay, because they have already developed a suitable corona vaccine, but it works for chickens, and now they have to prove that it works for humans. Now, what makes this vaccine so interesting, number one, is it's oral, okay? It doesn't require an injection or a shot, and that's really important for many of the countries of the developing world, where refrigeration is not an option. So this is a vaccine for the whole planet, not just for the industrialized West, but for Africa and Southeast Asia and places where an oral vaccine will be spectacular. Your kids will prefer that. Number two is it doesn't use any live or dead virus. It's a subunit vaccine that comes at this in a different way, okay? It's already been proven, at least in its chicken format, to be safe and effective. It can be manufactured relatively easily by a fermentation of bacteria process, and it's a platform, so it's ready for both mutations. Yesterday, there were a lot of news about, at the moment, they've counted 39 mutations of the COVID-19. So you need a platform strategy, and that's what we have here. And it's also it's working on different levels of immunity. So it's actually providing mucosal or mucous membrane immunity, as well as cell level immunity and systemic immunity. So it's a pretty exciting vaccine project, one of about 100 worldwide. And we believe that this is good, that there are a lot of people racing to get this done. It's one of these things where it's a win-win. Even if someone else beats us, we all win, right? As soon as we get this vaccine, the world wins. And we're proud that Israel is in the race. We're not the only project in Israel. There are other projects going on at the Weizmann and Ness Ziona and others. And we're hoping that everybody, succeeds here, because really there is no win and loser. This is the humankind fighting to save this. And by the way, this is not going to be an easy project. Don't mistake that, think that this is straightforward. This is not straightforward. This coronavirus is a mess. It is a real, tricky, difficult scientific challenge. And the people who are building vaccines are going to need a lot of talent. And we're very excited about our team in particular. Just a couple of words about other companies who are in the fight, and then I'll be happy to take your questions. We have another company called Site Diagnostics, who have pioneered the ability to use optical technology to do blood count. And their product, which is called OLO, now does in 10 minutes a complete blood count with only 2 drops of blood. And they're finding that this machine is very, very effective, in particular in the Sheba Hospital and others, where you can now test COVID patients without having to put their blood into the central labs. Pulm One is a company that does pulmonary function or lung function testing in a very small box rather than a hospital setting. And this is critical because, unfortunately, as a result of the COVID disease, there are going to be many people who recovered but are going to have impaired lung function, and we need a whole new range of diagnostic equipment to test for that. TytoCare is a remote diagnosis tool that uses clinical grade diagnosis in the ears, in the throat, in the lungs, and they can do this from afar. And they just announced a $50 million round about 2 weeks ago, led by Insight Ventures, one of the leading venture funds in the world. Cryon is doing robotic process automation, which is a way to let robots write your code. And Maccabi's healthcare system here use this technology to tie in the COVID data to their database. Instead of taking 2 months, which their programming team told them that it would take, it took 2 days by the robotic method, and it was ready from a Friday to a Sunday, which is essentially over the weekend. Quite an amazing story. MeMed is doing instantaneous detection of viral or bacterial infection by using AI. And they're, in particular, with their technology, think they can do earlier detection of COVID, even those who are asymptomatic. VocalZoom is using multiplicity of sensor technology, so we can do a little bit better than just taking a temperature sensor, but we can do a multi-symptom sensor analysis to find who's actually got this. Switch is using cell phones to manage diseases, and in particular managing people who have COVID in a stay-at-home mode, as well as other diseases such as those in the oncology and diabetes and whatnot. Data.World, which is one of our American companies, is leading the world now in terms of taking different kinds of data and collecting it in their COVID-19 data center. Barcode Diagnostics is an Israeli company who's figured out how to tag different particles, both for oncology testing, but now to improve throughput for COVID testing by a factor of 100. They think they can improve the testing, but right now in their final tests, we hope to have this out soon. TechC is using their technology to provide remote technical assistance at home and at companies. Nobody's inviting a technician into their home or office anymore, and they use their mobile phone to give you the tech support you need, and it's actually being used for ventilators. Vodafone's doing it and a lot of others. CyberMDX is providing medical systems and medical devices with the security it needs. We don't realize how endangered we are, that a hacker could take control of your ventilator or your pacemaker and send you a ransom note saying you've got 30 minutes to live, okay, unless you send this money. And that's what CyberMDX is working to prevent. And they announced just a couple of days ago a $20 million round to help them grow their business. And Sense Education is providing very interesting testing technology for remote education with 1.5 billion people sitting out of school. This is an important story. So that's just a quick overview of what's going on at OurCrowd. We're very proud of the new vaccine project at Megvax, and I'd be happy to take your questions. Uri, back over to you.
Thank you, John, for an impressive tour of the horizon. Question, you announced a $12 million investment, but how much is needed to develop a vaccine? Is it a drop in the bucket? Or?
No, it's not a drop in the bucket, but clearly, these projects need money, okay? And many of the companies who are developing vaccines are big companies, along the size of Johnson & Johnson. And so startups must raise money effectively. And we think that 12 million is a good start. And again, this group had been working on a lot less out of their research institute. But clearly, this will be just the first investment of many that we plan to make in this project.
How it's going to work practically? You announced a call for an investment, and now investors are expected.
You go to ourcrowd.com. If I want to, I can show you here. If I stop this share and bring up another one, hold on one second, and I'll share this with you. So excuse me one sec, we're going to share a screen. And now you can see this is what OurCrowd's like. If you want to look in our website, you can go there, and I invite all of your people to see. There are always a variety of investment opportunities. So here you're looking at the Megvax opportunity. You can watch a video. You can see that we were planning to raise about half of the $12 million ourselves and let other investors do it. What I can tell you is we've already raised, in the 2 days this has been up, over this amount, and we're moving on to raise more money for the company. You get information about the why we're investing. You get the presentation here where you can see more detail about why that investment makes sense. You get a quite detailed analysis that we provide that gives you the ability. Are you guys seeing this here? I'm assuming you are. That provides data.
I don't think we do.
Excuse me?
I don't think we do.
Okay. Are you seeing the stuff that I was sharing?
No, I don't see it. But let's move on, and people will go into the website and find out itself. There's a question here. Okay, now we see.
Oh, you didn't see it until then. Sorry.
Yeah.
So this is what it looks like, when you go to the website at ourcrowd.com, and you get information of a variety, including presentations about the company, the summary of the terms, our own analysis of the opportunity, etc. And this is true for a bunch of opportunities that we have at any given time. Okay.
Most of the investments come from the US. Is there something coming from Israel itself?
Sure. We have anywhere between 10 and 20% of our dollars usually flow from Israeli investors. And then probably about up to half of our money does come from the US, but the rest of it comes from around the world. We have 180 countries represented on our platform.
The CEO of Megvax announced that it's going to be ready in a few months. That's a bit optimistic, no?
Yeah, no. When he says a few months, that means we start human trials in a few months, which we are hoping will indeed be the case, that in the summer, we will be investing in the clinical trials for humans. Right now, we're moving into rodents. Obviously, the prior vaccine was tested quite extensively in chickens, but the human tests are supposed to start in the summer.
Usually the sequence is cure first and vaccine later. No, here you're turning things upside down.
Look, we have companies that are working on different kinds of I wouldn't call them cures, but mitigation. So we have a company called Sanitize, who just announced last week that they have proven that their nasal spray can kill the COVID-19 virus. This has been tested at Utah State University and it works. And now they're starting a clinical trial with medical professionals to provide them with treatment that basically, once they've been infected or have gotten the virus in their nasal tract or in their throat, you can use this nasal spray and a gargle of theirs and actually kill the virus. So that's starting clinical trials at the moment. We have other companies that are doing testing. As I said before, Barcode is doing rapid testing. People like TytoCare are doing remote clinical analysis. Site Diagnostics is being used to do complete blood count testing, which is part of the diagnostic routine for all COVID patients. And so we have a bunch of companies who are in the fight right here, but we need more, okay? And we're looking all the time and getting ready to announce new investments, hopefully over the next couple of days.
You mentioned the rapid testing, which seems to be the bottleneck in the whole system of fighting the coronavirus. And it seems that Israeli technology or companies are always ahead of the establishment. And it seems that bureaucracy is holding things back. Don't you agree?
Look, I think in general that the tech world is moving fast now. And the smart bureaucracies are getting out of the way and letting technology move fast and fix things and move fast and break things. Because, you know, there's no guarantee. When you take risk and you move fast, you're going to make mistakes. And the bureaucracy has a very important role of trying to prevent these mistakes from happening and hurting people. And that's why we have things like the FDA and whatnot that are trying to make sure that before drugs get out there, they've been fully tested. But on the other hand, when people are dying as a result of there not being drugs, the equation becomes a little different. And what we're seeing, at least in the US and Israel and elsewhere, is a real willingness on the part of the regulators to give technology more room to run. And that's a good thing.
Is there a credit crunch in Israel today?
Look, I think there's a credit crunch everywhere. The countries have been providing liquidity to the biggest institutions and the banks. Banks here are fine. Okay, they don't seem to be in any grave danger at the moment. The government's providing a lot of liquidity into the bigger parts of the economy. I think individuals are facing credit crunch with 1 million people in this country now receiving some kind of unemployment benefits, either through what's called Halat, which is the Israeli furlough program, where you're on vacation supported by the government, or others. In the US, the number's at 26 million. These are astounding numbers that are scary. And you know, luckily here in Israel, we're now going back to work, albeit in a staged way. We hope that this does not cause a spike in the infections or the death or the serious cases, and we'll hope that we keep it under control. But the long-term economic impact of this medical problem, I think we're just beginning to get our hands around. And I think that people who expect that it's going to just bounce back right away are wrong. That there are issues here that are going to take a long time to work out. And whether it's airline travel or sporting events or hotels or cruise ships or whatnot, so much of what we take as a normal part of life is not going back to what it was probably ever. Okay. And I think that most people haven't grasped that yet, that there is a absolute change now in life as a result of this, which will, even with the vaccine, God willing, should come speedily, will never go back to what it was before. And that's my conviction, unfortunately. But that also provides at least a lot of the underpinning for our own investment thesis, which is in this kind of a dramatic change in life, there is a huge investment opportunity and a requirement for lots and lots of innovation and technology development, where Israel, I think, can play and is playing a significant role in this.
Do you already sense a change in the mood of investors, switching from traditional things to new ones?
Absolutely. And look, I think that investors are involved in a fright, flight, and fight response. And initially, it was, with the fright, was being frozen. People were just afraid. Then a lot of people just ran away and said, I can't handle this, talk to me. And now they're starting to fight. And I think that smart money realizes that there are some really great opportunities out there of companies who either saw this coming in a way. So, for example, those who were invested on take a public stock like Zoom or Netflix, okay, those are obvious beneficiaries of these changes. When you look at the numbers of new subscribers for both of these services, and this doesn't change, right? In other words, it's not like all of a sudden in a couple of months, these are going to go down, I don't think. Okay, in other words, these changes in society are real and in my opinion, permanent. Okay, they're going to continue as trends. When you look at companies like TytoCare, who are building telehealth or remote diagnosis, okay, this is going to be normal in the future. You're not going to have to see your doctor face to face as much as we have done in the past. That's going to be a change. Robots writing software instead of people. It's not just going to be in an emergency situation like it is today, because as soon as companies see, hey, it worked in the emergency, let's do it normally. And that's what's going to happen. Many companies are realizing that work from home works, that I don't need everybody in the office. Yeah, I'd like to see my team and whatnot, but do I really need to spend all of that money for keeping these are changes that are happening in real time. And many of them were trends that started before the crisis that have now simply been accentuated, accelerated. I use the phrase warp speed. I think of it almost as like in that Star Trek moment when they say, Zulu, take me to warp. And you all of a sudden, boom, okay? And that's what's been happening now with a lot of the social change.
Okay, we're ready to wrap up. Just one technical question. Somebody tried to sign up in the on your website, and he was told that he should be a accredited investor.
So we have press access, and Uri, if you will give us the list of those who participated here, we will send them a special code that gives them access to our website and as the press, and we will also send to the same list a copy of the slides.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uri, and thank you to your guests for being with us. Thank you. And everyone stay safe and healthy.
Remember that if there is a vaccine at Megvax, remember where you heard it first. Thank you very much.
Very good.
And tomorrow, 11 a.m., we'll host Colonel Mary Eisen, former IDF intelligence officer, who will speak on the regional strategic implications of the coronavirus. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, John, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.